This is where it began. A boy in a church pew praying to be different. Well, actually praying to be the same as everyone else. Praying to be acceptable. Praying for an answer. This is where it ends, with the understanding that he was the answer. He always was. And so were you. Quantum physics tells us that the observer doesn't just watch reality. The observer participates in creating it. Which means you are not a passenger in this life. You are a co-creator. And the frequency you carry right now in this body is actively shaping the world around you. That's not spiritual bypass. That's physics. And that's what this finale is about. I want to begin at the beginning. Not the beginning of this series, but the beginning of the story that made this series necessary. There was a system built over centuries, refined over millennia, designed, whether consciously or not, to do one thing above all others, to stand between you and your own divinity, to convince you that your connection to Source was conditional, fragile, mediated, and earned, that you needed the system to reach God, that without the right beliefs, the right behavior, the right body, the right identity, you were cut off. And to maintain that position of power, the system did something that history has documented clearly, even if our Sunday school classes never did. It mistranslated. It omitted. It burned libraries. It removed entire gospels from the canon. It took the teachings of a radical, sovereign, deeply embodied spiritual master and turned them into a compliance manual for a conquered people. It took Yeshua's core message, the kingdom of God is within you, and buried it under centuries of doctrine that pointed everywhere but inward. They didn't just mistranslate the texts, they mistranslated you. They told you that what you are is not enough, that who you love disqualifies you, that your body is fallen, that your questions are dangerous. None of that was God. All of that was control. And it worked. For a long time, it worked on me, on my community, on billions of souls across centuries who deserve to know from the very beginning what I'm here to tell you now. You are Source. Not a fragment of Source, not a copy of Source, not a creation separate from Source, looking back at it from a distance. You are consciousness itself, choosing to experience this world through your specific, irreplaceable, unrepeatable lens. Male, female, neither, both, gay, straight, everything in between, black, white, every shade the earth has ever made, misfit, mystic, doubter, seeker, every single one, the perfect, necessary, sovereign expression of the one Source, experiencing itself in infinite variety. There is no version of you that God cannot love, because there is no version of you that is not God expressing itself. The diversity of humanity is not a problem to be managed. It is the point. Source chose to know itself through every possible lens. You are one of them. You are not a mistake. You are a perspective the universe required. Now I want to talk about the body, because this is where the reclaiming gets practical, and practical is where it becomes real. Throughout this series, we've talked about the body as sacred technology, the pineal gland as receiver, the heart as a coherence generator, the nervous system as a spiritual instrument. And I've shared what I personally have done to tune that instrument. But I want to go deeper on a layered piece that doesn't get discussed enough, because it connects to everything. Consumption. What you consume becomes your frequency. Not just metaphorically, biologically, energetically, spiritually. When I moved toward a plant-based way of eating, whole fruits, whole vegetables, living foods that still carry the photonic energy of the sun and the earth, something shifted in me that I could feel before I could explain. My meditations deepened, my intuition sharpened, The static got quieter. The signal got clearer. Life brings life. That principle is not just poetic. It is measurable. It is real. The food that still carries life force elevates yours. The food produced through suffering and death introduces that frequency into your body. You cannot build a high-frequency life on a low-frequency foundation. And this is where I want to say something that might surprise you. Because I don't think Yeshua's most radical act was the resurrection. I think it was the tables. When Yeshua walked into the temple and overturned the tables of the money changers and drove out the animals being sold for sacrifice, he wasn't having a bad day. He was making a statement that went to the very heart of his teaching. The sacrificial system was built on the premise that the divine required death to be appeased, that blood was the currency of forgiveness, that you had to bring something dead to the altar to earn the presence of the living God. And Yeshua, who taught that the kingdom of God is within you, who said, I desire mercy, not sacrifice, who consistently pointed people away from external ritual and toward internal transformation, looked at that system and said no. Not with permission, not politely. I mean, he flipped the tables. The animal agriculture industry of our time is operating on the same energetic principle: mass suffering, industrial death, a system that requires the suppression of consciousness, both animal and human, in order to sustain itself. And the diseases it produces, the inflammation, the hormonal disruption, the dulling of frequency, these are not coincidences. They are the biological consequences of consuming suffering at scale. I'm not here to shame anybody's choices. I'm here to offer what I've found. And what I've found is that when I stopped consuming death and started consuming life, everything about my spiritual practice changed. The meditation went deeper. The breath work opened further. The heart coherence became more accessible. The connection to Source became less something I reached for and more something I simply lived in. Your body is not separate from your spiritual life. It is your spiritual life made physical. What you feed it, how you move it, how you breathe it, how you rest it. These are not lifestyle choices. They are acts of devotion. And here's where the science catches up to the ancient knowing. The observer effect in quantum physics tells us something profound. At the subatomic level, particles exist in a state of pure potential, multiple possibilities simultaneously, until they are observed. The act of observation collapses that potential into a single reality. You are the observer. Your consciousness, the quality of your attention, the frequency of your heart field, the coherence of your nervous system, is actively participating in the collapse of infinite possibility into the specific reality you actually experience. This is not metaphor. This is the frontier of modern physics. And it means that the work of tuning your body, clearing your pineal gland, practicing heart coherence, living from authenticity and love is not self-improvement. It is reality co-creation. You are not preparing yourself to receive a better life. You are becoming the frequency that calls it into being. When your heart is coherent, your nervous system is regulated, your body is clear, and your consciousness is rooted in love, you don't just attract reality, you generate it. Part of keeping that consciousness rooted and grounded in love is not allowing the powers that be, whether from social media, politics, entertainment, or the news, to convince you to disregard, condemn, or hate your neighbor. What you consume with your mind has just as much influence on your coherence as what you eat. What you consume with your ears or speak with your mouth means something. Words matter, whether listened to, spoken, or written. So generate a reality that reflects love, That is the science of divine remembrance. So let me bring this full circle. This series began with a boy who was told he was not enough. Not loved enough, not straight enough, not good enough for the God he was given. And that boy did what wounded people do. He searched. He questioned. He fell apart and rebuilt himself. He walked away from the system that hurt him and walked toward something he couldn't fully name, but could feel in his chest like a frequency that never left. And what he found, what I found on the other side of all of that searching was not a new religion. It was not a better set of rules. It was not an upgraded belief system. It was this. The thing I was praying for was the one doing the praying. The love I was searching for was the love I was made of. The divine I was reaching toward was reaching back through the only instrument it had available, me. This body, this voice, this specific, irreplaceable, perfectly imperfect life. You are not a human being trying to find God. You are God having a human experience. And every prayer you ever sent outward was Source calling to itself through the only voice it had, yours. We covered a lot of ground in this series. We talked about the mistranslations and the missing gospels, the body as sacred technology and the pineal gland as receiver, the 5 leaks and the nightly practice, sovereign spirituality and heart coherence, the true meaning of turning the other cheek, the new earth being built one authentic soul at a time. But all of it, every episode, every teaching, every practice was pointing at the same thing. You. Awake, embodied, sovereign, clear, in a body you've tuned, in a life you've reclaimed, in a relationship with Source that belongs entirely to you and requires no intermediary, no institution, no permission. That's it. That is the divine reclaiming, not a series, but a return to what you always were before anyone told you otherwise. And now I want to speak to you directly, not as a teacher, but as a fellow traveler. If you found this series at the exact moment you needed it, that was not an accident. There are no accidents at this level of awareness. You were called here by the same force that made you, because something in you was ready to stop outsourcing your divinity, ready to stop waiting for permission to be whole, ready to remember. So here's my blessing for you as this series closes. May you know yourself as Source knows you, without condition, without exception, without end. May you treat your body as the temple it is, feeding it life, breathing it open, resting it with reverence. May you love with the full coherence of your heart, beginning with yourself, extending to all things. May you walk through this world as you actually are, a sovereign, embodied, irreplaceable expression of consciousness, the consciousness that holds everything in being. And may you never again give any system or any doctrine or any voice outside yourself the power to tell you that you are anything less than divine. Because you are the answer. You always were. Yes, maybe you just needed someone to remind you. This series is complete, but the reclaiming never ends. What comes next goes deeper into the hidden history they didn't want you to find, into the ancient wisdom they tried to burn, into the science that keeps validating what the mystics always knew. So I'll see you there. Thank you, and I love you deeply, without condition, always.